Okay, we're going to get started. Welcome to week 3, live lecture 1. Hopefully you guys are getting your feedback from week 2 and adding and revising your pages. I saw a lot of great grid structures that you guys were working with, so hopefully the discussion and everything else that we kind of went over and reviewed helped you apply the appropriate grid system to your pages. I did also notice some of you guys having alignment issues with your baselines, so make sure that your all of the baselines of your columns of body copy are aligning at the bottom, as well as across from column to column. And also master pages, just make sure that you're applying your folio correctly, your page numbers. I had a few of you that were still struggling with that. If you are, let me know. I did go over that in past lectures. I went step by step on what you need to do to place in the current page number in the master pages at the very bottom. All right, let's go forward here. So it is week 3, live lecture 1. Just to kind of get you guys up to speed here on announcements, just what we do every week. Discussion 3 needs to be posted, your initial post before midnight tomorrow. And actually tomorrow is Halloween, so it's kind of crazy. We're gonna talk about that in a second here. We'll make sure you're getting your initial post in there before midnight Mountain Standard Time to get the most points possible, if not, potentially full credit. Your assignment 3 and assessment 3 are also due before midnight Saturday. So, and I don't have that. So make sure you're getting that in before Saturday. Welcome, Jennifer. Just got started here. Hey, how you doing? You ready for Halloween? Good to hear. Yeah, it's going to be a crazy week. I'm probably most likely going to shift the lecture tomorrow because we normally meet Wednesday pretty late in the evening. And everybody, I don't know about you guys, but our trick or treat is tomorrow, so I will need to shift that. Yeah, so just one of those things. So I will post 2 announcements when that will be shifted to our second live lecture. And then, if you can't make it, definitely listen to the recording, and I'll try to get that as done as soon as possible, but it's kind of later in the week still. All right, as we get started here in week 3, do you have any questions, concerns, anything going on right now that you want to talk about? You guys are dealing with some pretty intricate details in regards to your pages, keeping everything aligned. Yeah, okay, just, kind of working with InDesign and all the options that you have, the paragraph styles, the character styles, master pages, linked body copy text boxes. You're basically doing what designers do when they're working in a publication. So it's a great experience to play around with all these tools and really kind of experiment. Just getting used to the flow of things, how everything kind of changes if you need to edit certain things. And don't forget, and this is my fault too, I have been forgetting to do a spell check on the last couple live lectures. So make sure, and I'll show you tonight how to do that, but make sure you're running a spell check, because I think there were intentional spelling errors and grammar errors in the Word files that were given to you, so that you can catch that. Now, I wasn't obviously taking off points for that because I didn't quite go over that, but yeah. So I meant to go through that, but we went through, over so much stuff that I completely forgot. So my apologies. But always good habit to get into before you actually submit it to a client, do a spell check, because you don't want to be, I've seen people who actually misspell logos wrong, and they show the actual client. That's yeah, that's the name of their brand. So that's usually kind of the make or break situation. So you just never know. getting a second eye on that is also important. I have a story when I worked for a publication company in Ohio. I worked for an automotive aftermarket magazine, and we had teams of people because they produced several publications from the one company. And I was the sole designer for a magazine called Engine Builder. Well, going in, I don't really have that much experience with cars and automotive. So you kind of work with the publishers and you learn certain things. And I didn't have to learn too much about the actual subject. I just needed to know the basics. Well, what's funny is about my first week on the job, I was designing a cover for the magazine. And of course, they want you to put the engine on this cover and make it look all good and have all these elements on there. So I'm like almost done designing it, and the IT guy comes in to check on the computers to see if everything's okay. And he comes up to my desk and he's like, "Oh, it looks really good, blah, blah, blah." And right before he leaves, he goes, "You know that engine's upside down, don't you?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, I did that intentionally, not really." So, having that second eye, you just never know. Sometimes when you're working on things so long, you don't see the obvious too. So having collaboration, just, with you guys, with you guys being students, I understand that sometimes that's kind of like, hit or miss, but I always used to suck people in the room that I was working in at home and tell them to look at something or even give me some collaboration ideas. Sometimes it's nice to bounce ideas off of people who may not be design privy. Sometimes they come up with really cool ideas and thoughts. So just in your process, that's one of the things that you can add definitely to that. But all right, so as we go forward here, just checking in again, if you have any issues, whatever, just email me if you're listening to this recording. I'm here to help you guys. I want you all to succeed. So it's not just about me going, "Oh, that's right, that's wrong, that's right." I'm objectively grading and evaluating your work, but I'm also here for you guys. Because if you succeed, obviously, I feel like I'm succeeding. So I want you to know that I'm here for you guys. Discussion 3, we'll go over in detail today. See if you have any questions. We'll just do an overview of grids again, just so we're kind of, we know the solid foundation of certain grid systems and talk about the language and the lingo that goes with that. Assignment 3 we'll go over today, and then we'll do a demo. All right. So are you dressing up, Jennifer, for Halloween? Hopefully everybody has a great Halloween tomorrow. Get lots of candy. Hopefully it doesn't rain in Pittsburgh here. I think it's going to be 60s. Ah, okay. Your son is a cat in a hat and I am thing. Awesome. How old is your son, Jennifer? Oh, that'll be cute. I want to see pictures. My daughter's good. She's 4. She's going to be a lion. And this is the 3rd time in a row that she's going to be a lion. So I guess it wasn't like, oh, awesome. Yeah. And I was supposed to be Day of the Dead, the skeleton, but I don't think I'm going to be dressing up because it's going to be cold. So I don't know. We'll see. I might scare my daughter anyway, but we were supposed to have a Halloween party last weekend, but it fell through. So yeah, there you go. Yep. I actually bought a dress and everything for it, but just didn't work out this year, I guess, but who knows. Yeah, I want to see pictures. If you guys want to bring in your pictures from Halloween, maybe the next time we meet up, we can share it. It's kind of fun. I love Halloween. That's like one of my favorite holidays. Very, very cool. All right, let's go forward here. Design is thinking made visual. Think about that. Oh, cool. Murder mystery party. That's really neat. You were a devil for that. Was that this year? Nice. Very nice. I remember I did a Halloween party when I lived in Florida. We had psychics come too. Awesome. And we had people come and they would pay to get a reading, and then people would dress up. We'd have like a little contest and stuff. It was really cool. It was definitely memorable. Very, very cool. All right. So Sol Bass here, just a little quote from him. Yeah, that's true. Design is thinking made visual. Think about that. When you think, when you're designing, you're also communicating visually too. So all your elements are speaking to a particular audience. The color, the texture, you know, the typography that you're using, the shapes, everything that's kind of going into it is speaking. It's communicating visually. So, you know, just something to think about. All right. Let's take a look at your discussion thread. I know some of you guys are getting started here, so it's going to be a little bit of a different discussion. Before we do that, let's actually look at your week 3 objectives too. Sorry about that. Just run through some of the things that we're going to be going over this week that you should be walking away from in terms of learning this week. Oh, and here's actually design thinking animation. Definitely check that out. So you guys are going to be self-critiquing effective principles of design by listing a minimum of 5 ways to improve a layout. Differentiate between effective and ineffective grid use when communicating with the end user. Research and identify proper techniques to convert print media into web media, and identify the similarities and differences between print and web layout strategies. So this week you will design a full-page advertisement using a carefully structured grid that will persuade the consumer to purchase the product or service based on the information presented in the ad. And go ahead and, you know, take a look at this almost 3-minute video here about design thinking. I think this is kind of an interesting video here. Actually, we can take a look at it now if you want. I'll play this. I don't know if you guys can see this. There we go. Okay, were you able to see that? Hopefully you were. Oh, okay. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yes, there's a lot of process steps, and some of that is the sketches that you're talking about. Yep. Oh yeah, I went through my master's at SCAD, and it was you know, we had to show each process step as we went through. And there's a reason behind that. That's kind of the beauty behind what designers do. It you apply this in every way, even in this class, you know, thinking about the grid system that you're going to use, figuring out what works best, going through the options and, you know, working around with that. But anytime that you have a design problem, which is a, you know, a project that you're working on, you want to go through your design process steps. And it's not always linear, but there's a system that you should go through, that every designer should go through. And the reason why you do it is because, you know, you ever hear of a designer saying, oh, I have a designer block, I can't think of anything. Oh, awesome. Good for you. Good for you. Yeah. So, you know, designers, I think everybody thinks that we always think of ideas quickly, and that's just not the case, right? Oh, was it? Yeah, but it's not, and that's why we do the process steps. If we don't, you know, if we don't do our process steps, we can come up with a beautifully aesthetic design of some sort. But is it really meaningful? Is it effective? It probably won't be. It probably won't last because you didn't put the energy and the time into the process steps to really understand what the problem was, look at it in every way possible before coming up with a more effective and meaningful solution. So you understand what I'm talking about as far as design process. It's definitely the beauty behind what we do. Yeah, and the process steps, you know, clients usually aren't involved in that. Clients don't see that usually, unless they want to see maybe roughs, but typically you don't really want to show them any of that because that can get you into trouble because they might, you know, want to step in too much with the process. But yeah, I mean, it's for you to come up with as many effective and meaningful ideas as you can in a different way that fits the problem more effectively, a better solution. So that was kind of a way of showing you in that video the design process, only showing you in regards to the apples and how to get to the apples more effectively. So just like in design. All right, very, very cool. I think I could teach the design process for like a year and still not get tired of it. I just love it. The process steps. Okay, let's go into your discussion. It's called Show, Tell, and Learn. Yep, exactly. So I know some of you guys can't see the chat log, so I'm going to read out what Jennifer said. She said, I think sometimes something we miss with graphic is to ask ourselves the purpose first, formulate an entire question, and answer it in many ways effectively. Yeah. So, you know, what is the problem we're trying to solve here is what you're saying. How do we approach that problem? Yeah. Do your process steps, which is gather that information, do your research, look at the competitors, what's out there, you know, who you're competing against. I mean, you can go into all kinds of different avenues in terms of your design process. Yep, bad ideas. Yep, crazy ideas. Some of the best ideas are coming up, you know, that are put down on paper of your crazy ideas that actually come into fruition and like are very effective. You go back to it and you're like, oh my gosh, no, this is one of my crazy ideas, but it actually works for this. So you just never know. Collaboration is another part of it. Like I was just talking about, having other people kind of involved in the process, getting that second eye or information, you know, brainstorming, that's all very important. Yep. Very good. All right, so as we go forward here, go ahead and read through this background information. I'm going to go to the prompt. So Jennifer said, I got an honorable mention at the International Home and Houseware Show for the throwaway idea that ended up being what my instructor told me to go with. Really? What was that? That's awesome. Very interesting. So it's like one of those things. Okay, it was an apron that was heat resistant from the waist down so you could take things out of the oven. That's awesome. Do they make those now, Jennifer? That's a great idea. Yeah, it's so funny when you come up with those ideas, how quickly they come out right after you think of it. That's very cool. Yeah, so I mean, invention is all part of that too. Yep, that's awesome. Good for you. Very exciting. Very, very smart. So the ways to think about how to solve a common problem. It's just the same goes with the design problem. So going through those process steps. Very cool. Okay, so for this discussion, thank you for sharing with us with that. Wasserstorm stole it, so I quit industry. Friends that had similar stories. Isn't that crazy? Yeah, it's almost like you have to get a patent on it right away. And, you need money for that too? Oh, you had one for a year. And they didn't they just created it too, or how'd that work? Yeah. So you had to keep up with that every year. Every year was $300. Then when they patent pending ended, they took it and legally they could. Oh man, so you would have been paying $300 out of pocket every year, correct? Yeah. Oh, that's a shame. Sorry to hear that. It's just one of those things, right? It's like you have to have a lot of money to make money. Wow, that's crazy. $3,000 for the actual patent. Well, you just never know. It's been a decade, yeah. You just never know. You might come up with something and kind of maybe do it differently this time. You never know. It's definitely hard to get into, but it's really that's neat to hear that story. I know I came up with a solution of those, and you probably see them now. So it was many years ago for one of my graduate classes. Those grocery bags that you put into your cart that you unfold and put in there, and then you put your groceries or whatever into, you take them with you so you're not wasting plastic. And they're actually made from fused plastic bags. Yep, exactly. Yep. Well, they came out with that. Yeah, soon after I did that. You like package design the best because it's marriage between both graphic and yep, exactly. Yep. Is that what you're going to be doing when you get out of school then? Is that what you're going to? Yeah, cool. Very cool. I know I interviewed a lot of places. One of them was it was Rubbermaid in Ohio that I interviewed for. Lots of packaging design work in-house. Might not have been the coolest place, but there's definitely positions. Oh, okay. What part of Ohio? Columbus. Okay. I lived in Akron for 6 years. A little far away there. Never been to Columbus, but yeah, really. Lived there for 6 years, and then I moved to Tampa, Florida for 7 and came back here. I don't know why. Don't ask why I came back, but that's just how it works. All right. But you're in Phoenix. You're kind of like what I did, from north to south. But you stay there, which is good. Yeah, I've heard it's really nice there. I've never been. It's more of a dry heat than a wet. Yeah, I that's on my list for sure. A lot of people retire there, just like Florida. So, never know. All right, so your discussion 3, picture this. Let's go through the prompt here. If you have any questions, let me know. You've worked hard, but put a lot of thought into every design decision to create a layout you think is amazing. You're confident your design solution is creative and meets the client's expectations and will resonate with the target audience. Now it is time to present your solution to the client and other members of Acme Media Group creative team. You walk into the meeting, confidently show and explain the design solution, and receive feedback that is not clear or helpful. At best, you are feeling confused and left wondering how well you hit or missed your project goals and objectives. How can you avoid this situation? As a designer, it's important to present your work and explain your design decisions so you can receive the right kind of feedback. So part A, for this discussion, you will self-critique your multi-page feature article week 2 assignment and embed your design into the discussion board for feedback. If you have not completed your week 2 multi-page feature article, choose a project from a previous course and embed the design into the discussion board for feedback. Your goal is to help the client, the other creative team members understand your design process. Yeah. For your initial post, explain your work using the criteria below. What design problem are you trying to solve? So we were just talking about that. How does your design solve that problem? Part B, so that's part A. Part B, during the discussion, you're required to make 2 follow-up posts offering constructive feedback. If possible, respond to a classmate who has not received a response to their initial post. The more involved and engaged you are in the process, the more opportunities you will have to improve your work. For each follow-up post, critically analyze the design and offer a minimum of 5 ways the effective use of principles of design can improve the layout. Oh, no one ever comments on yours. Oh. So don't forget that, your initial and reply post should work to develop a group understanding of the topic, challenge each other, build on each other. Always be respectful, but discuss this and figure it out together. So embed it. So that means you should see it whenever you see your post, it should pop up. So talk about what design problem you're trying to solve. What is it that you're trying to do with this multi-page feature article? How does your design solve that problem? So you might want to talk about the grid system that you created, the hierarchy, things like that. And whenever you are responding to your peers, give objective or constructive and objective feedback. So that means, I wouldn't say, oh, I like this because I like this, I like the color green, so I think it works for this. It's not really your opinion that you're basing your comments on. It should be objective and constructive. So it should be like, the green works really well with this concept because it's consistent with the actual article name that you're going with. It's consistent with the overall look of the theme of the magazine. Be very factual in regards to what the principles of design that are being used specifically. Talk about all of that. That's objective criticism. All right, so thinking about the problem, think about what are you trying to solve with this multi-page feature article. Discuss this, bring up the principles of design that you created, that you used, how that's working for you. You can bring in, obviously, citations. You need to have citations within your post. This is to support your post. So don't use just citations only. You want to also, when you cite a source and you have your quotes in there, you want to end it with your 2 cents. You don't want to kind of just end it with a source cited. So you kind of sum up what you cited after you place that source in there. And that's just using your critical thinking skills. You're not just copying and pasting your sources in there. Any questions about that? Okay, so, don't forget to read the background too. There's some information in there that would definitely be helpful for you. In support of that, I just kind of skipped over it because I don't think you want me to be reading the whole thing. So let me know if you have any questions, but definitely get this started so that you can get your feedback as soon as possible. Here, Jennifer said nobody responds to her, so hopefully you guys will be evening each other out this week. Jennifer, you're going to have like 10 responses on yours now. Let's hope, right? All right. So that'll be kind of an interesting discussion. We'll kind of get into the nitty-gritty, and it'll give you more feedback too, not just what I've been giving you. So it's kind of nice to get that feedback from your peers, not just as just from me. It also gets you thinking about why you did what you did and communicate it. Because I think a lot of the times as designers, we're really good at visually communicating what it is that we're trying to do and say in this particular project. But whenever we actually have to sit and explain it to a client verbally, I think sometimes we may lack in that because we're so visual. And maybe you're not like that, but I just know that sometimes we need to work on that part. So the discussion is a nice way to work with those critical thinking skills, kind of get you guys thinking about, yeah. Yep, it's hard to translate the font works because when you picked it up because it felt right, yep. And having that backup of, your concepts, like a design brief in in other words. So you have a backup to say why you did what you did. You're not just basing it off of just, oh, because I liked it. You know, you're actually doing the research, so you have that backup to say why you did what you did. Okay. All right. Okay, we've got a half hour in here. Let's take a 5-minute break, and I'm going to go over some grid, just a little overview of grids. Yeah, we'll do a little 5-minute break here, give you a little break. And then we'll start into your assignment 3 demo, and I'll kind of show you how to approach that project, and then we'll go from there. Sound good? All right, I'll see you back here in 5 minutes. Okay, can you hear me? Awesome. All right, got some tea from my vocal cords here. All right, let's take a look at some just kind of like a little overview of what we went over, just so that we're kind of clear on some things. And these are some things that you can talk about too in your discussion this week. So I thought this was kind of a nice connection with what you guys will be kind of communicating in the discussion, something that you can definitely use in terms of the lingo here. So grids and design, we talked about this. Grids are a series of intersecting axes that create horizontal and vertical divisions of space on a page. You can see here in this example, it's kind of like a larger grid being laid out. Grids allow the placement and interaction of visual elements, creating movement across a layout, a movement and a flow of where your eye should go to. So it's kind of like a hierarchical pattern of sorts. Grids can be simple or complex depending on the content. And grids are not meant to be restrictive. They can be modified to fit content. And we talked about this before. They're used to control, organize, create rhythm, harmony, unity, readability, movement, balance, direction, contrast, interaction, and order within your layout. So it allows you to kind of, it's the way that the eye flows around. You're dealing with a lot of information usually when you're working with a grid system. That's why in magazines, it's so important to have a really solid grid structure so that you're able to organize all the information and images in a way that's easy to be viewed or read. Elements in a grid are the columns. We talked about what columns are, gutter widths, column intervals, flow lines, rows, grid modules, and margins. We'll just go over this a little bit more in review so that you can discuss this. You can use these terms in your discussion. Margins, you might hear me say, you need more margin space. Pretty much what margin space is, it defines the active area of a page and directs the viewer toward the visual elements. So that's why it's really good to have a good balance of that. If you don't have enough margins, the information inside is not going to be as important. It won't be equally defined. Margins may vary in size depending on the format as well as content. So, you kind of balance that out with the size of the space. When I talk about margins, sometimes when you guys are using blocks of color text to pull out your quotes, sometimes I talk about the margin space around the quote and the box. So that's an example there. So it doesn't necessarily mean on the very outer edge of every layout. It could mean your elements as well. Folios and footers may be placed in the margins. We showed that how to do that. Margins are not intended to trap content. They are instead used to activate the positive spaces in the layout. So you use them. You definitely can have an image bleed off of a page where it's not having a margin, but maybe the typeface, the type copy is being defined in a margin, or even just like elements of design. For layouts with large amounts of text, books, large margins are ideal as they provide breathing space. That breathing space is so important because you don't want everything to run together. It's just easier to have that visual pause so that the eye kind of understands, okay, this part is together, and then we go to this section, and this section is together, instead of it all being running together and it's harder to follow and read. We talked about columns. So you have vertical divisions of space used to align visual elements. So you have these columns here. In the purple example, you can see single, multiple columns can be used or interchanged. You guys are working with columns with your magazine ad or magazine pages. The quantity and complexity of information determines columns. A newspaper obviously has a ton of different, multiple columns, but depends on the information too. A gutter width, also known as column intervals, negative spaces that separate one column from the next and prevent text and images from clashing. The column and then the gutter shown there. So you want to make sure that you have enough gutter space to balance out your columns. If they're too close together, it's going to be harder to read the information. So it's a nice visual pause in between. It's a nice visual balance to enable the viewer to understand, okay, this is a column of text to the next. Flow lines, support for vertical columns by dividing the page into horizontal intervals to provide additional alignment points across the grid. You can see the flow lines dictate the horizontal positions of a visual element and how they rise or fall along columns, and it's used for consistency. So the flow lines are shown here horizontally, so they're the blue lines that you see here. You have modules, and they're spaces created by columns, rows, and margins that support text and visuals. Content will determine the amount of active modules. They can be used for consistency as well. And it's okay to leave modules empty as negative space to balance design. So you can see here, I think I showed this example before, but just another little review. The columns are in the orange area there on the example. The modules are the darker orange. The margins are the light blue, which is around the layout. The spatial zone, we didn't talk about that. They are groups of modules or columns that can form specific areas for type, ads, images, or other information. It's that gray area. We talked about flow lines, horizontal lines there. And then markers are indicated with a little X at the very bottom. So that's kind of the, it could be page numbers, folio of sort. So know the components, elements of a grid so that you can discuss this, in an intelligent way, I guess. Here's another example showing you each of these areas: margins, columns, flow lines. So when you're talking about something and you're responding to somebody's post, you can use this terminology so that you sound not only professional and knowledgeable, but also you're communicating effectively to what you're trying to explain to the actual person that you're critiquing. You have modular grids, and let's talk about the systems here. So same as multiple column grid with the addition of flow lines. Modules are active areas of the page that accommodate visual elements, and they're good for complex applications such as magazines and newspapers. And I think we took a look at this example before. This is a modular grid. So this is, you might have used a modular grid in your feature article. You'll want to make sure you use that terminology if you did and kind of explain why you use that. Single column manuscript grid, we talked about this as well. It's a basic structural system good for producing large amounts of textbooks, for example. In this grid, margins are the only consideration. I think I didn't fix that spelling error, sorry. But we looked at this, this is typically found in a regular reading book of sorts. One column. You kind of want to steer clear of this if you're working on body copy in a magazine, just because the line lengths get a little bit too long and it just gets harder to read because you have a lot of elements in play. But when you're reading a book that doesn't have a lot of imagery in it or other elements other than the body copy, it makes sense to do it in this way. Multiple column grid contains multiple spatial intervals. Very flexible grid, allowing for a range of visual elements, great for complex projects like magazines, newspapers, publications with diverse content. Rhythm, movement, and tension can be developed through the interaction of visual elements in multiple column grids. You may have used this in your feature article. That's something you might want to bring up if you did. You have a hierarchical grid. It's based on intuitive placement of elements rather than regular repetition of intervals. It's more of an organic approach to using grids. Alignments change depending on content, but remain proportionately integrated. Web pages are great examples of this. So you can see here is more of a hierarchical grid. You can see more spatial areas are bigger. And then it's not really a symmetrical grid. It's more asymmetric, more organic in that regards. You have alternative grids, loose and organic, rely heavily on intuitive placement, just like we saw. Most alternative grids rely on a dominant visual element, focal point to help align other elements, and develop spatial relationships through the push and pull technique. Here's an example of that. It's a more involved alternative grid. So it's not symmetrical. It's symmetrical in regards to what's going on the left and the right, but as far as the elements go on the left, if you're just looking at the left section, they're not symmetrical at all. The lines that the spaces that are being sectioned out. All right, so hopefully that'll kind of help. That was a little review of what we went over last week, but hopefully that'll help you remember some of the things that we did go over, and then use that in your discussion whenever you do post your initial posts as well as your responses. Any questions about that? All right. All right, let's take a look at your assignment 3. You guys are going to be creating a full page advertisement. And this is kind of typical of when you're working on a magazine. And in my experience, I've had clients that'll come to you who already have the ad created. They paid somebody else to do it, and they're giving it to you to place into the magazine. But then you'll also have the clients that may not have that luxury to have somebody design it for them, or they know that you do it in the actual in-house publication part, and that's maybe a deal that you say, hey, I can design your ad for this, if you want whatever, a deal on whatever the ad price would be. So there are instances, if you are working on a publication, as a publication designer, you will be designing ads as well, maybe not all of them. But they'll come to you and say, hey, I need an ad for this. They'll give you the images, or maybe sometimes they'll say, here's the concept, come up with something, and it's more creative, more creative for being more open creatively. So you could kind of have that experience. And you could also have the experience, I worked for an ad agencies where you're designing the actual ads to go into publications only. So they're coming to you saying, hey, we're going to place this in several magazines that would obviously target the audience here. We need several different sizes and different file types, not just for print, but for web. So you might be in that situation. So let's go ahead and take a look at your assignment 3. Make them an offer they can't refuse. So what you're going to do is read through this background. I'm going to give you some background information before you start, kind of talking about the different grid systems and kind of what to look for whenever you're creating your advertisement. I think it is important to kind of point this out, though, so I'm going to read this part of it. Advertisements must communicate their message within a matter of seconds to draw attention and quickly explain why the product or service has some lasting benefits to those who read it. To improve the effectiveness of the ad, a carefully planned grid structure must be used to bring order to the layout, making it easier for the reader to find and navigate through the information. The first consideration when choosing a grid is the elements it will contain. When glancing at an advertisement, the reader typically looks at, in the following order: number 1, the visual image; number 2, the headline; 3, body copy; and 4, advertiser's name, logo, and contact information. So this is the typical order. That means the visual image should be the main focus, could be. Now that this can kind of go back and forth. I've seen where the actual typeface becomes the visual image too. So but for the most part, they're saying visual image is usually the first thing, headline second, so it'd be less emphasis. Body copy would be third, and advertiser's logo would be fourth. So everything kind of should downsize and be less emphasized based on that order. Okay, so go ahead and read through all of that. I'm going to go right to the prompt. So whether you're advertising a new product or service, creating an advertisement can persuade the consumer to purchase the product or service based on the information presented in the ad. With magazines, it is possible to target a specific target audience. If an advertiser has a product or service to promote, they may choose magazine advertising because many magazines have a large circulation that targets a specific demographic. A designer who can differentiate between effective and ineffective grid use when communicating with the end user will be able to create an advertisement that attracts attention, communicates through the arrangement of design elements, and persuades the consumer to purchase the product or service. For this assignment, you will design a full-page advertisement using an effective grid structure that will be placed on the back cover of your magazine. Carefully choose a product or service that targets your magazine's audience. The assignment instructions in the 8-page document you set up in week 1, you will be using page 8 for your full page ad. Create a grid structure that effectively communicates with the end user. Apply the principles of design: contrast, repetition, alignment, and proximity. Required design elements: you have to have a headline. You have to have at least one visual image. That's minimum. Body copy. Advertiser's name, logo. Create a simple logo and contact information. And then when you're done, you're going to submit your actual file, for evaluation package and design file. So you're going to include the PDF. Save the package folder as a zip file, and then you're going to name it as such and submit it. Any questions about that? Nope. Okay. All right. So when you're looking at this, I'm actually going to click on these samples. Here's a little sample of some students' work. Think about what would be appropriate for your magazine. Think about products or services that would be great for the audience that's actually looking at your magazine. All right, here is one example. Let me bring up the other one too before I actually click to show you. You might have looked at this already, but take a look here. Okay, so this one would most likely be in obviously the remodeling magazine. So they're showing the image being the focal point, and then you have the affordable luxury, enjoy kitchen for your life as the headline. You have the logo with the phone number call out below that. It all has its own emphasis, so it's kind of going from big to small. And then down here you have the bonus, which is the upgrade today, $500 off, the kind of the incentive that you have. The other one here, also for the remodeling magazine, is your kitchen outdated, is the headline. So you see the image first. They're using the rule of thirds here. You dream it, we build it. Enjoy a new kitchen for your lifestyle. So it doesn't have to be a lot of body copy, and it shouldn't really be a lot of body copy. You know, I would say don't go more than 3 lines of copy if you really need to for the body copy, just because you really want to just sum it up. People aren't going to want to sit there and read a whole bunch of copy on an ad. You know, just have supportive text, kind of let the viewer understand what it's about. What are you trying to do here? And maybe an incentive. Obviously, the call out, which is the phone number. You can have a phone number and or the web address, and then the logo is the send off. Okay, those are 2 examples for, you know, the remodeling magazine. Now, if you're working on the other ones, if you're working on the fit magazine, you know, think about products and services that you could do for that. You know, it could be vitamins, it could be weights, it could be training, you know, maybe a trainer ad. Could be lots of things. And then the other, let's see what the other magazine is here. Remodeling, what's the other one? Remodeling fit. What's the third one I'm missing here? Main ingredients. So that would be obviously related to healthy eating. You could have, you know, different, what do they call that? You know, maybe it's like a crock pot, you know, different devices that you cook with that you might be using as a product. Could be a service, you know, like Blue Apron. Obviously you wouldn't do that, but it could be a service like that, where you're offering some type of service to the target audience. So make it relatable to the actual publication that you're designing for. Go ahead and do, you know, your go ahead and do your, sorry, I'm doing a million things here. Go ahead and do your sketches. You know, like we said, research, see what's out there, maybe look at other ads that are out there for your magazine, kind of get an idea. You can create a new product, a service that, you know, you came up. I wouldn't want you guys to use something that's already out there. You know, make it up yourself. I think that's more creative. So you're not really redoing an ad, you're creating this brand yourself, and the ad, you know, is different than what you see out there. Make those sketches, you know, think about, you know, how are you going to, what grid system are you going to use? How are you going to use the principles of design to kind of, you know, get this started? Okay, so the assignment 3 is making sure that you get all of the required design elements in there. You want to at least have these, so just kind of keep that in mind. Now your logo that you create doesn't have to be something crazy. You know, it could be as simple as a word mark. I don't know if you know what a word mark is. You're basically using the name of the brand in a specific font. Very simple. You could do something like that. So I'm going to show you kind of what I would do, and I'm doing the Fit magazine, so I came up with the full page ad idea of doing something where it was a service. This is just something that I made up myself. So I'm going to do, let me share my screen here once I create a new document. I'm going to do a new document in InDesign. You can't see what I'm doing here, but I will share my screen in a second. I'm just going to do 8.5 by 11. Okay, here we go. Let me get my chat box up here. Hold on one second. All right, so I basically do your research, kind of get the idea of the product or service that you want to do that's related to your magazine, then start generating ideas. Sometimes I go with, you know, looking at images first, and then I decide what I'm going to do. So I want one focal image that I'm going to do. The idea that I'm going to run with is a interesting idea. I'm not sure, they probably have something out there like this, but this is where your creativeness could come into play as far as maybe making something that's not out there real. But the idea that I wanted to do, let me go to Pixabay, is it's a service, and it would be a yoga service that is kind of like a mobile yoga service, which I think probably is out there by now for sure. Let me go to my examples here. Hold on one second. Oh, I actually have, I think I have examples here. Oh no, these are from older. I thought I had examples to show you, but I don't. Oh, maybe I do. Yeah, I might have some examples to show you. Give me 1 second here. Past student work. I kind of just popped up there. Okay, so it would be, and I just made this name. I don't even know if this exists. It's yogitravelers.com. I thought that was kind of cool. But it's a way of, it's a traveling yoga studio that I kind of thought up of. I don't even know if it exists, but it's just something I thought up of. Now, I'm going to go to, I don't know if you guys ever heard of it, but it's pixabay.com. Sorry, let me get my right here. Pixabay. They just have free images that you can download that are high res. Pixabay is great. I'm sure you probably know of others as well. But I can go in here and just type up yoga, anything related to that, and find some really cool images to use for my ad. Now remember, your ad's going to be 8.5 by 11, so it's going to be more portrait than landscape. That means it's going to be taller than long. So when you're, you deciding on an image, a lot of these are horizontal. You have to think about how that's going to be, how that's going to work with your content. Like for instance, this is more vertical. And it doesn't mean you necessarily have to go with a vertical image. It just is like, okay, how is it going to work with your type and other elements going on? So you might want to do, what you might want to do is go through here and look up like a keyword that would be what you're looking for in relation to your product or service, and just download a whole bunch of images that you're inspired by, like 5 or 6. And that way you can kind of play around with them, which one works the best. Sometimes I do that anyway in my mission to find something. And this is the one I actually honed in on because I think this is a nice image to show yoga, but it's kind of on the road. You're kind of out on this, road to nowhere, but it's kind of showing like you're traveling somewhere. I thought this was kind of a nice image to use for this article. So I downloaded the high res image. And it's a horizontal orientation, and that's okay. I'm going to make it work. As long as it's high res, I can make it work for this, and I'll show you. Okay, so I'm going to open up my new page. All I did was go File, New, Document, and I know you can't see that, but just did 8.5 by 11. My margins are just 0.5 all the way around, and then my bleed is 1/4 of an inch. I'm going to take my rectangle frame box because I know I'm going to bleed my image off on all 4 sides. Now, you don't necessarily have to do that. You saw in those examples, some of them, those examples only showed maybe 1/3, you know, maybe this much of the image was showing, and then this is color block or type. So this is where you kind of determine your grid structure, okay? How are you going to place this image in? So you might want to bring your rules up again, just go up to View, Show Rulers if you don't have them, and you can bring your flow lines down here to kind of direct where your headline's going to be, your subheads, and then other information you can kind of place there. Okay, so I know I'm going to go with more of a symmetrical grid for this because, you know, we're talking about yoga. Yoga is all about symmetry, balance. So I think this really lends well to the actual idea of it, is just having everything very symmetrical, very centered. So with the bigger image, I'm going to do Command D, and I already downloaded this image, so I'm just going to go ahead and grab it. So give me 1 second here. And you can convert this to a TIFF file before you place it, like I showed you in Photoshop. It's always a good habit to get into. When you, and I'll show you this for assessment 3, I'll be showing you a different way to do that. But I'm going to place it in here, and it's going to place it pretty large depending on the size of the image. I'm going to go up to Object, I'm going to go Fitting, Fill Frame Proportionately. And what it's going to do is fill this frame proportionally set to the actual bounding box that I have. So if I double click on this, it's going to create my red box that's going to show you, okay, this is the entire image. So I have more on the left and the right, but it's fitting on the top and the bottom. So if I need to adjust this, say if she's a little off, I'm going to use my keys on my keyboard to kind of shift her over a little bit. And I know she's a little bit off. Oh, based on my lines, but I think my lines are a little off too. Let me see here. I have this set at 2. Let me set my rulers over here. Yeah, my lines are a little off here. So I'm going to set my flow lines correctly here. There we go. And I just drag this little corner to the edge over here to create a 0 axis to the right. So I know that I was looking at it in the same measurements there. Okay, so now she's probably centered right here. Okay, so now my focal point is set in here. I'm going to save this. Assignment 3, first, last name, save to my desktop. Now I have to choose a headline. This is something that you're going to make up. And this is a lot of the times clients come to you and say, you know, I need a catchy headline. I have the information about the product or service, but I need you to come up with I've been in that position a lot of times where they're like, can you come up with something catchy? You know, and you come up with several ideas, and, you know, sometimes when you're lucky, they go with them. So kind of cool. This one, I'm going to take the type tool, and I'm just going to draw a box from the left to the right margin for now. We can kind of adjust it. Let's pull this up here. And I'm going to have, what I came up with is nothing gets in the way of my yoga mat. So I think something catchy to draw the viewer in, to make the connection of image with headline, and then obviously the information that's going to be provided is important. I think that is a way to kind of draw the viewer in so that they understand what's going on here. And I'm going to set this to white. Make sure you have enough contrast. I'm going to pull this down closer to her head here, and I think I have this balanced up here. Let me pull this up, my flow line, so it's not too close to her head. There we go. All right, now I'm going to set this to a typeface that I think maybe would better reflect the brand that I'm trying to portray here. And I went and took a look at different typefaces online, and grabbed one that I think looks best here. It's called Conforta. It looks a little spaced out here. Let me see if I can pull that in a little bit. Conforta, this is something I just downloaded online. We get the character button. And now I can kind of maybe pull this in just a little bit. It looks a little spaced out. It's a very nice neutral typeface. It doesn't look feminine nor masculine. It looks very organic, yet, you know, it's not too casual. And because I have a little bit of a white area back here that's kind of getting in the way of my readability of my type, I'm going to throw a very subtle drop shadow. So I'm going to go up to Object, Effects, Drop Shadow, and apply just a subtle drop shadow. So I'm going to take the opacity down just a little bit, the distance just a little bit in closer to the letters. You can play around with the other things, click OK. So you can see it reads a little bit better. So nothing gets in the way of my yoga mat. And that's really the concept behind this. You know, it doesn't matter where you are, we're traveling, we're the yogi travelers, so travel with us, nothing will get in the way of our services here. So I'm going to take the type tool again, and I'm going to create another box for type where my flow lines are, my vertical lines. And I'm going to use the same font, Conforta, maybe regular. I'm going to try 24 white. And I'm just going to create a subhead that kind of supports what the headline and the brand is all about. Services. Join our traveling, so I'm telling you what it is, yoga studio. I'll take this down a little bit. And then I'm going to center this. So I'm going to go up to Window, type in Tables, and choose Paragraph, and do Centered. And I think I might take this to 24. I'll just pull in the leading a little bit here, the tracking. And I don't want to take it in too much. So let's go -5, and then we'll go 22. Oops. Changing the point size here. I want it to be less emphasized. I don't want it to be as big as the headline, but I want it to be readable too. And then underneath that, obviously I have what it is, what it actually is, but now I need to have the actual logo. And mine's going to be a word mark. yogitravelers.com is my word mark. So I'm going to make that bold and a little bit smaller. And that'll be basically the actual logo itself. I think that looks pretty good. Everything's centered. Let's take a look at all of the elements here once I take the lines out. All right. So if you don't know it already, there's at the very bottom of your toolbar, you have different views down below the fill and your stroke, way at the very bottom. If you click on that, you can see the normal view with all of your lines that you created. You can go to preview, you can just see bleeds, you can see slugs, or presentation mode. I'm just going to click preview, and that's just going to be a nice way of previewing my ad without all the extra stuff going on around it. So this will kind of really give you the idea of what this will look like when it's printed, and then you can kind of go in and do some adjustments if needed. Okay, so this is really basic. You know, I'm keeping it simple because the concept should be simple. It shouldn't have too much information. You're talking about yoga here. It has to be simple. It has to come off simple. So less words, the better. But you still need to tell the audience what it is that you're talking about. So here I am explaining. I'm going to throw a little drop shadow on this too. What it is we're trying to sell here. What it is we're doing, so that they're not confused. You know, if I didn't have this information here at all, if this was missing. Okay, well, what's this talking about? Nothing gets in the way of my yoga mat. All right. Should I bring my yoga mat? What is this? Are you selling a yoga mat, or is this a service? So that's why this information is so important to have, as well as obviously the logo, call out information. This kind of is hand in hand, the logo, brand, and call out together. So it kind of works in that way. Now I can go in and kind of emphasize different things, like maybe I can make this a different color, just make that pop a little bit. you know, there's some things to kind of try and experiment with. I kind of like the simplicity of this, the very neutral part of this. So I'm going to leave it as is. So keep it simple. I could have tried different ways to do this too. Let me show you a couple other ways. You know, I could have did this in a 1/3, in a rule of thirds kind of a way where I'm utilizing, you know, I'm not, what I don't want to see is you guys dividing this in half. You know, when you divide something in half, you're losing the focal point where it's dividing the two spaces up too much, and it's becoming two different entities. But another option that I could have done is something like this. I could have kept that white down there, or I could take a color from in the actual ad itself. Let me make it actually real black here. We can keep it real dark. And had this, you know, coming about in a different way. Okay, so I could do this as green too, like a darker green, something like that. There's so many different ways that you can do this. You can even do a Mondrian layout. Do you guys know what Mondrian is? You like that? Mondrian would be utilizing, you know, parts of this, you know, where you're maybe more than one image, but you're doing different images. Let me see, let me get my preview up here because I can't see my boxes. There we go. So you might be using more than one image. The only thing with this is I would make sure that all the images are similar to each other in style if you do something like this. I'll have to go back to Pixabay here. Let's go ahead and choose 3 images that look pretty similar to each other. I kind of liked, there's a couple in here. You know, pick ones that obviously look like maybe they were shot in the same studio if you're doing something like this. If they're two separate, you know, looking in terms of the environment that it's set in, like this one is a nice one. Actually, these two are perfect because they look like they're set in the same environment. They're very generic in terms of that. But what happens is there becomes a disconnect. Okay, so let me download, oh, I always do that, sorry. Download maybe the studio ones here just to show you guys real quick, a different version of this. And I'm saving the low res just for ease of doing this quickly here. Save. Move this to the desktop. So that one. That one looks similar. I did it again. Right. They don't necessarily have to be shot, you know, in the same, at the same photo shoot, but just make it look like it has been so it doesn't look so disconnected. That's kind of like the key to keeping it cohesive looking, especially if they're side by side. That one's kind of a good one too, but let me try to find one that's a little lighter. This actually is a good one, but that's outside. This one might be perfect because it does look like it was one that I used, just a different position. Okay, all right, so I downloaded the 3, I'm adding them to my desktop. So when we go back to the ad here, we'll just kind of swap out these. So what would be best here? Yeah, something you'll have to play around with, you know, what's best in what space. This might not be the best one for this space, but you can get a feel. And sometimes it's just kind of trying it. in different areas. All right, so I probably would do, see what this looks like, got all the lines. Oh, this is even the same length here. You could put dividers in there too. I just chose not to, but you can kind of see, you know, the cohesiveness. Now I can take the color from in here, from the actual mats. Do like the pink, it'd be kind of cool. Keep it cohesive in that regards. But you can do like a Mondrian layout. Now if I wanted to do a border, I would just pull these out a little bit. Let's give that nice like white border, just make sure it's even and aligns better, you know, aligns well with that. And of course, this would have to have a border too. So yeah, there's different ways that you can do this and play around with it. I can even divide this space up a little bit more with my headline and maybe do, if I didn't want all that pink, we can do half pink and half maybe darker brown. Let's see. Pull the brown in her leg there. Here we go. Send it back. So you can play around with something like this. This is very symmetrical, yet you're breaking it up into different sections as far as the imagery goes on the top. So that's another way that you can do it. All right, when you're done, you know, obviously we need to package this. Any questions about that, by the way, before I go forward? Nope, some ideas there to get you started. So I'm gonna go File, Save, obviously. Then I'm gonna go File, Package. And just make sure everything all is good. Click Package. Sorry, you guys can't see that. Continue. And you can include your PDF. Smallest file size is fine. Desktop. And that should save it to your desktop here. Let me pull this up. There we go. Let me pull up the PDF. So it's all packaged together, and then you would just zip that folder, and I can show you that in a second here, but I did want to show you the PDF. Open up your PDF, just make sure the PDF looks good before you submit it or before you zip it. Here's the PDF that I made, the second version, and here's the first version. So they both definitely have two different feels about them, you know, different vibe. I would say this one's more of, I don't know, could be more of an indoor related traveling yoga studio, where this one's maybe, you know, maybe it's outside and inside, you know, something to think about in regards to what you're trying to communicate. Two different concepts. All right, so you're going to zip that folder, and I'll show you here in a second. Let me share my screen, my desktop. So here's the folder that I just packaged. So it has my InDesign file, it has my PDF, my fonts, my links, images, and I'm just going to hold down the Control key. If you have a Mac, compress folder. You can also select the folder and go up to File, Compress, and it's going to create your zipped full file that you're going to submit. This is what you'll submit. Any questions about that? Hopefully I inspired you guys to think about different things. Okay. And all I can say is just do some research of like maybe typical ads that would be in the actual magazine that you're designing for, so you kind of get an idea of different products and services if you're not sure what to do. And, you know, that might pull you into a direction that you can say, hey, I've, you know, maybe something cool out there could be advertised for whatever product that you're thinking of. It could be a product that you have a picture of, but you're creating a different brand name for it. That's fine. I would say just don't copy, you know, a big time brand to just redesign the ad for. You know, be a little bit more creative, I think, in regards to that. You kind of saw what I did, so hopefully that'll give you, spark some ideas and inspiration. I know Pinterest has some great, you know, you can do some really good inspirational thinking there where you're coming up with images to inspire you. Jennifer, you said, I've been actively looking for layouts. I'm not great at them, or at least not as good as I want to be. Till last week, an article would all be the same if I came from me. Yeah, I mean, that's just something that that will come in time too. Let me see if I can find. Let me see if I can find some images here to help you guys out. Yeah. I just looked up, I just went to google.com and looked up grids for advertisements. So, you know, you can find some really cool inspiration here with maybe just like different, different approaches to it. No, I'm just doing a general search here, so bear with me. But have fun with it. You know, it doesn't always have to be symmetrical. You can do an asymmetric grid for your ad if it calls for it. Some of these are for websites too. Trying to find something for you guys to be inspired by, and let's see, grids for layouts maybe. There we go. So think about, you know, this is just a very simple grid structure here, but definitely something that you can utilize. I mean, this, I mean, you can do sketches like this where, you know, you're kind of thinking about where to put, you know, it's for placement only. This is where the type would go. Very simple sketches. And a lot of times they do this for web design. They're called wireframes, and they're structured out to, because they're so complex, some web pages can be multiple pages and be, you know, you want to make sure that they flow together. So they make wireframes to help with that. But it's the same idea as what you're doing in print. There's different, here's one for a magazine. You know, so think about the, you know, structure that you're going to go with, the system, the grid system that you're going to go with, and be inspired by what you see out there. Now I'm going to do fit magazine advertisements. Just a general Google search. Some of them might be kind of weird, but you can kind of get some ideas here. Fit magazines, you know, a lot of them are going to be covers or ads. Full page advertisements. Okay, let's look for food magazine full page advertisements. So you get an idea of what's out there, what brands are out there, what the articles look like. You know, think about it being on the back of the cover too. You know, that's people pay a lot of money for ads that are not only full page, but you know, if it's the inside cover or the back cover or inside back cover, they're paying premium money for that space, because people tend to look at that either first. Sometimes the magazine's flipped over. It is the backbone of the magazine. So, you know, you want to make sure it's a very solid layout in terms of, you know, of the overall, the grid structure that you choose. And it's not, you know, something that doesn't quite look right for the back cover. I mean, it's going to look like a full page ad no matter what, but kind of be mindful of that. So you can see some good examples here of different ones. Remodeling magazines. Yeah, you can find some ideas here, some full page ads. Some of them are already set. There's some here. I mean, that might be a nice ad. Very simple, yet it's kind of like, looks like a maybe a construction company, developer. Okay, so, you know, start here first, kind of look at things that relate to your magazine, different products and brands, and then go from there. I think that would probably be the best way to go about it. All right, and then when we meet next time, which I'm going to post an announcement, we're going to shift our lecture, so it won't be tomorrow. It's going to be either Thursday or Friday. We're going to go over your assessment 3, which really, and I don't think it's too bad to wait that long. I think it's a little not giving you guys a lot of time, but I think what's nice about this assessment is basically we're going to be taking what you designed for assignment 3, and we're going to make a web ad out of it. So you'll have all the information and the design done. You'll just be rearranging the elements and then obviously saving it out differently for print web. Now, what I didn't show before, and let me show really quickly here, what you want to be mindful of when you're designing for print. I'm going to open up Photoshop here. When you decide on the images that you're going to place into your InDesign file, you want to open them up in Photoshop, size them correctly, kind of what I showed you before when we were talking, I think week 1. So I just open up Photoshop here. Hold on one second. So I'm going to go into my folder and grab that, because actually I placed JPEGs in there, which really is not the proper thing to do. So open up each image, know the size that you're going to be placing them in. So for instance, this image was in a 3.6 by 2.5 square that I sized this in, so 3.5. Remember that size, go up to image size in Photoshop. And this looks pretty good because it's almost 2.5, but you know what, this is a low res image that I downloaded. So if you're downloading the high res, you're gonna need to resize this. But this looks good for what it is now. The only thing I need to do is convert it to CMYK. So image mode, CMYK. And go file, save as, save it as a TIFF. And then you're just going to replace where you add, you know, where you use the JPEG, you're going to replace that in the actual ad itself. So you're going to go in here and you're going to, it actually just updated it now. So you're going to have all TIFF files properly sized in here for print, 300 pixels per inch. And then when we do your assessment 3, you're going to convert those, you know, properly for web use. Okay, so that's important because those are 2 different steps that you need to do. That's important because if you just place the JPEGs in here, you know, printer's going to say, hey, you need to save these out as different, you know, as TIFF files, especially in, you know, when you do convert it to web, you'll have issues there too if you keep them at high res. So just kind of be mindful of that. If it's just one image, like I used in my first concept, that's easy. Go ahead and just convert it to CMYK and save it out as a TIFF file. All right. Any questions? Anything that you want to show or talk about? Now is the time. Yeah, do you have it on your computer, Jennifer? Might be easier if it's, okay. Yeah, let's have you pull it up because it might take me a while here. That's okay. I'm going to stop sharing. You can go ahead and turn your mic on. I'll turn your mute off.
Find it. Where is it? It's in InDesign.
Take your time. We got some time.
And what's that? Recent. Okay, well, never mind. I hate this. Okay, zoom. Desktop. Layout.
Hey, careful, careful.
Okay. Where am I? Here? Nope, here. How do I do it?
Okay, so do you have the share? Do you have the little, there should be like a little marker on the top.
Yeah, hang on.
It should say share.
I lost you. Hold on.
Put your cursor at the very top, maybe, of your screen.
Did I lose her?
Can't see it?
No. Where is it? Why is it so hard?
Okay, I can pull it up if you, let me.
I don't know where. I don't know where you went.
That's okay.
Sorry. I don't know.
You can pull your, let me open up the grade book here. You're talking about your assessment or assignment too?
Assignment.
Yeah. Okay.
Like, I don't know where you went on my screen.
I'm lost.
Yeah.
It disappeared. Okay, well, I'm pulling up your file now, so just a second.
My toddler in the background.
Do you want me to open up your InDesign, actual InDesign page, or do you want me to open up your PDF?
The PDF is fine.
Okay. I think this is
I don't know how I can hear you, but I can't see you. What happened?
I know, that's weird. It must be hiding behind something on your screen.
Something.
Okay. All right, so this isn't the one that I commented on. I'm just showing the one that you submitted.
Okay.
So my comments, I believe, and I can go back and click on that one. I won't because it'll take a little time. We're on the first page. You can take that off because that's your cover page. So you could just actually make this page not a master page.
Right. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think you did a great job with coming up with a really unique grid structure for your feature article. And then also, oh, you know what? I think I made a comment to this page that you might need to ignore because I think what I said was to tie in that vertical element here, but this it doesn't belong with your feature article. So forget that I said that.
Okay, yeah, because the letter from the editor, I wanted it to match,
Yes.
you know, for the actual article it was on, but I was confused as to whether you wanted me to do that on the other article too.
No, I think that's fine. Just leave it. The only thing I mentioned was, you know, the feature article, maybe just have the same type treatment as you have here on your first page of your feature article.
Okay.
Just to keep the consistency. It's up to you what you think. But yeah, on this page, just ignore my comments about that. Okay. It just clicked whenever I was opening this up. I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense. So my apologies. This looks great though. It's really well balanced. You have a lot of great alignment going on here. Your table of contents space is perfect. Just pulling together the leading, which is the space in between your headlines, will make it a little bit easier to read.
Okay. Because
there's just a tiny little bit too much space, you know, that I'm seeing that can be taken out to make it easier to read, especially because you see how read this how-to article and then you have your byline are so close together too. So just pulling that down just a little bit, the first line down a little bit towards the second line is all you'll need.
Okay.
And then adjusting the photo, so maybe it's breaking it up in a better way so you're not kind of dividing this section here. Just bumping it up a couple spaces so that the weather is key maybe goes below that.
Okay.
Might be better. Just a couple shifts.
Just move it up.
Yeah.
I think it's there because of the grid structure that I had.
Oh, okay.
It was just like, well, I really want to keep it there. So I need to get rid of this brown thing on that third page.
Yeah, I was a little confused. I wasn't sure because it wasn't on this page.
Because it looks so. So the picture and the pull quote looked so weird and out of place without anything in between them, you know. So just, but there's just so much body copy that I struggled with where to put those.
Maybe keeping it, but making it the same width as the image here of the guy with the mask, and then having that just aligned with that.
Okay.
Might look a little, it almost looks like a mistake because it's not really on this page like that. I get what you're saying, because you don't really have the element here. And if you do that, you might want to maybe add it on this part too.
I could do that.
Yeah.
It was really hard to get it all to fit on there too. So I don't know. I might play with doing right justified, but what's that called?
I would, or you mean just justified?
Yeah, just justified. Sorry.
I would probably steer clear of that, because you're going to run into a lot of big gaps in between your sentences. It's okay to do with the small paragraph, say in an ad, but when you're dealing with this much text, you're going to see it. It'll be a nightmare.
Okay.
It's going to have large gaps in the middle of some of your sentences that you.
And with the bullets too, I'm like, there's no way that would look good. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, I mean, you have a lot of information in this article to, if anything, you could probably pull this image up just a little bit and maybe get 3 or 4 more lines out of your body copy here at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And then that will free you up here, for more space. That's where I can see you kind of gaining a little bit more spaces, maybe going up maybe an inch, maybe a half inch more here. And then just kind of adjusting. I mean, you can even, it's just a lot of copy.
I know. It was a struggle. And I thought that the first page looked really good and dynamic, but I'm going, man, I'm going to have to fix something.
That's good. Yeah, you'll probably gain just a little bit more space here, but it's going to be tight. But I think it's good. I don't think it's like too much copy. I think you broke this up in a nice, more dynamic way, so it's not so just copy heavy looking. So I think
the last page is just a struggle. So I'll work on it. But
this page here.
Yeah, I'm not looking at yours. I'm looking at mine because I can't find it. I can hear it. I can't find it. So, but yeah, the very last one, last page.
Yeah, I think. What you mean? It just looks copy heavy.
Yeah, it looked really boring.
Okay. What you could do is you could trying to think. Pros and cons, and you have pros and cons. You can almost make it look like, if you really want to go into like making it look really dynamic, is almost make it like a list, like a handwritten list on paper.
Mm-hmm. Oh, cool.
I mean, that's something you could do 3D, like taking a picture of actual lined paper, and then this could be very involved, but it's completely up to you and how you want to do that. But that could be something interesting. The only thing is to tie that in with this, you could show just a part of the, how you pull paper off the three ring binder or something.
Yeah.
And the paper kind of gets rough. You could kind of show maybe the edge down here to kind of keep that consistency, so that you don't have necessarily show the whole page, but that could be a nice lead in to this page if you want to do something like that. You could even just put a texture in the background, like a piece of paper crumpled up and then spread out again where it's all white, but it just adds that texture in the background.
Yeah.
Of the crinkled paper. That might be easier to do. And then what you'll do is just add it here, just in this section, so you wouldn't add it, it wouldn't be the whole page. It would just be this 1/3 area here where the letter from the editor starts.
Right. Well, that'd be cool.
Yeah, and I think, like, if you go on pixabay.com, you could probably look up just like white paper texture. There might be, see this crumpled up piece of paper here? And if you can see that, let me share my desktop or share my page. Right here.
Yeah.
And it's light enough where you're not going to have to worry about, making the copy like this here, where you won't have to worry about making the copy a different color. You're going to have that contrast anyway.
Right.
But it'll add that texture to it to make it more, it'll be less stagnant and flat, and more dynamic looking.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
It looks okay. I appreciate your help. Sorry about that.
You're welcome. No problem. Yeah, there's a couple of things. So it's always good to kind of talk about this because everybody else learns from it too.
That's true. Yeah. So that's the only part. It was that last page specifically of the blue copy that I had the most. So I want to make sure that it was okay.
play around with it, see what you can come up with.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Very, very great job, though. I thought that was you definitely nailed it with the grid structure that you chose, the elements that you're playing with. I think you did a fantastic job.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate the time too.
Yeah, no problem.
I'll mute myself so you can go back to teaching.
No, you're fine. We're getting to the end here. If you have no questions, don't want to look at anything else, we'll just wrap it up.
Awesome. Well, I apologize about all the noise in the background with my 2-year-old, but
oh my gosh, I don't have my 4-year-old tonight, but I understand completely. Hey, have fun tomorrow for trick or treat.
Thank you. We will. Appreciate it. You too.
Oh, thanks. And I'll have to try to pull up a picture for you guys when we do meet. Like I said, I'll post that to announcements as soon as I get the actual time and day.
Awesome.
So,
that'd be great.
Right. Happy Halloween, and I'll be seeing you guys on the boards.
Great. Thank you.
Have a great night.
You too.
Okay, good night.
Bye.